All right, back to work tonight, guys and gals. Hope you guys had a fantastic weekend, but it's time to get back to work. It's Monday evening already. I know that time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? Monday evening, it's May 3rd, 2021. My name is Joseph, as always, and welcome back to your nightly newsletter. Now, if you're tuning in for the first time tonight, it's great to have you with me because my job tonight is to help us find the best trade setups for tomorrow. That's Tuesday's trading session. I got a great video in store for you guys tonight. Charts are all prepped up in the background, as you can see. Got the NASDAQ, got the gold, and oh yeah, get the S&P, the E-mini on our radar for tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, get some big news on our radar tomorrow. And of course, we've got some big potential moves on the markets tomorrow. The big question I have right now is, will the bears keep their hooks in this thing? S&P rolls over, NASDAQ rolls over, gold is trading right at a major top and a big range below it. Can the bears take control on the gold? I would love to see if they could tomorrow. Right? Get some great setups we're tracking for tomorrow. Before we jump in, though, and get our hands dirty on these charts, I've got a lot to cover here tonight in this video. I just want to make sure to remind you, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know, I publish this video newsletter every evening during the week, my best trade ideas for the following day. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that little bell icon so you always get notified every time I publish something new. And don't forget, if you guys have any questions for me, I'd love to answer all your questions. Drop those questions for me in the comment section. If you got them, don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help along the way. And as always, I really appreciate you guys carving out some time with me every evening, supporting this YouTube channel. If you guys enjoy the video as much as I enjoy making it, do me a big favor, a big solid tonight. Hit that like button, that thumbs up button here on this YouTube channel. But again, don't forget to subscribe. I don't want you to miss tomorrow night's video, and thumbs up if you guys have the content here on this nightly newsletter. But speaking of the video, let's get this party going. I'm always a few minutes late here right now, aren't I? Time flies when you're having fun. Let's get after it, though. S&P's here, NASDAQ's here, gold's here. Like I mentioned earlier, can the bears kind of keep their hooks in this stuff, right? S&P jumps up. We got a rolling over. I would love to short some of these pops on the S&P. Would also love to trade some drops. Got some big targets down on the E-mini, 4160, 4165 for tomorrow. NASDAQ, boy, they tried to push this thing higher than the NASDAQ today, but the bottom gives out. Got a bear market into a trading range. I've got a couple really nice spots. My eyes are on this 13,882 area. We'll see if we can get that far of a pullback, but I'd love to short some pops right now on the NASDAQ. And then how about the gold? Gold was a red hot runner going higher today, a complete runaway market. You really had to be aggressive with traps getting into it. But now here we are sitting at major overhead resistance. We have a trading range and, hold on, rotation off the high. Now, you might not know why that's important, but rotation off the high tells me we're probably too early to call a reversal just yet, right? I'm definitely not in the mood to call a reversal yet, but I would love to see if I could short that pop or see if I could roll this thing over and get back down. Remember, there are two ranges down here on the gold. I've also got my eyes on the buy side, right? Obviously, you can't really look at gold without thinking to be a buyer here. I got a channel on here, I get some levels down here, so I've got some spots on my radar here to get long. But I'll tell you right now, I think there's some really great opportunity on the gold, so make sure you stick around that section of the video here towards the end here this evening. So S&P's ready, NASDAQ's ready, gold's ready. Before we jump into these charts, though, I always want to make sure you guys kind of know the schedule here for the rest of not the rest of the week, but at least going into tomorrow's trading session. Now, speaking of the week here, we do have the first week of the month. And, as I mentioned last week on our video newsletter, the end of the month and the couple days going into the beginning of the month are usually some of the most volatile that we get. We saw quite a bit of volatility towards the end of the week last week, and we're hoping for some increased volatility as we go into the first week of the month. Now, of course, the crown jewel at the end of the first week of the month is that employment number, right? That non-farm payroll number. That is the most important news of the week. As we go into this week here, we had some really big news this morning from the ISM manufacturing, PMI and ISM. We're going to hear from them again on Wednesday. That is a very big news report. Jobs, right, of course, on Thursday, and of course the non-farm payrolls on Friday. So looking at the rest of the week here, we got some big news, which is always great stuff in our trade room because it will It'll get the markets moving for us. As we look at the session tomorrow, there isn't a lot on my radar as far as news goes tomorrow. We do have some major news at 8:30 Eastern time, but I would be surprised. I'd be surprised if that does much for the markets tomorrow. I'm more in tune by watching that factory order number at 10 o'clock Eastern time. We've seen a lot of our best trades in our trade rooms come at 10 or between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. So if I could only be at my desk for an hour or so tomorrow, 9:45 to 10:45, that would be when. If you could only be at your desk for an hour, that's exactly when I would make sure I'm paying attention. 9:45, kind of get yourself up to speed. 10 o'clock is that factory orders number, and then 10:10, 10:15, you'll probably see some of your best moves of the morning. That's the big news for tomorrow. That factory orders report for tomorrow. We get a lot more news Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday that we'll work with in newsletters later on this week. But don't forget, as always, right, you can grab a link and come join us every day as a member of our trade room. We open up every morning 8 o'clock Eastern time, Monday through Friday. I would love to have you there trading this stuff right there with us. Grab the link in the description of the YouTube video. Get registered as a member, and hopefully I'll see you here in the trade room this week here, and we'll do this stuff together. Let's keep going, though. Now that we know a little bit about the news for tomorrow, we know when kind of the best times are going to be paying attention. And, of course, we'll be in our trade room tomorrow morning and every morning at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Let's grab some charts here. S&P is bearish. NASDAQ is bearish. Gold is definitely not bearish. Gold is bullish. But it's not going to be that easy to be a buyer on gold for tomorrow. I'll talk about why here in just a moment. Why don't we jump into the S&P first? Let's grab the E-mini. S&P, of course, now we've got this market kind of rolling over here. We had that big what ultimately was a gap up over the weekend, right? Fridays close, Sundays open. That weekend gap, of course, will be a magnet all week here. But we did have a gap open at the open, right? Strong jump up. We pretty much spent most of the morning kind of chopping around this trading range until lunchtime when the market finally got its 1, 2, 3 reversal, right? That 1, 2, 3. So we're definitely bearish right now. The bulls have very little to stand on. The momentum right now is bearish, coming off the moving average. We have resistance trend lines down overhead that is going to be very difficult for the buyers to deal with. They can get around it, but the bears definitely have the easier job going into tomorrow's trading session. You really can't get your you really get a much better idea, though, what's going on when you zoom out, right? You can see when you zoom out of this chart right now that we are just hanging out here on top of this big range from last week. And if there's one thing that we know about trading ranges, right? Anytime we have, in this case, it was a bull market a few weeks ago into that range, as we pop up and end up rotating back down now, there's a lot of momentum that now starts to swing in the opposite direction. I could take the amount up, the amount down, and that oftentimes will start to anticipate kind of where this market wants to go here. So you can see, right? You can see that big range, okay, that big trading range. It wasn't a very large range, right? It was just a long-term range. It lasted pretty much all week last week. We're going up. It definitely feels like these bears have their hooks in this thing right now, and I'm trying to see if I can get this thing to rotate above the high, right down to those lows. So you'll notice there is a pendulum swing off the big high. There's a pendulum swing off the small high, and that, again, gives us some very nice targets to the downside here for these bears. I can also, of course, measure that leg, and that leg, right? And it really gives us, again, measured move, pendulum swing. So, again, bears have momentum. We're trying to get that rotation, back down to the low of this range. Got my eyes on targets down here at that 60, 65 area there for tomorrow. So what are my favorite trades for tomorrow here on the S&P here? Well, again, the bears have control. That is for sure. I'd like to be a seller up at a level of resistance. We've kind of got two ranges on this chart right now, right? We get that range below us, which is kind of the big range. It's the one that's kind of the most important right now. And then we had that smaller range, the little baby range there that happened, earlier this morning. both of those ranges will act like magnets. So kind of my idea right now is I'd like to see this thing, right, pop up, kind of get into the underbelly of that range, got some resistance coming overhead, and look for shorts back down. At the same time, too, even if we do make a run back up to retest the high, we're still staring down the barrel of all-time highs up there. It still looks pretty good for a short down there. And of course, if the market does roll over, that will be another one of my favorite trades as we go here. So pretty, not very difficult here right now to find some pretty easy setups here for tomorrow. My three favorites as we go into Tuesday's trading session. But my favorite one would be a short off the high of this channel. What I'd like to do is, since they already grabbed that trap, all right, you'll notice that little trap they already grabbed there. They grabbed that trap already. That's normally what I look for, right? Once a market rolls over like that, I look for that lower low in price, that trap right above that. It's a great trade. They already got it though from us for tomorrow. So with the trap being kind of taken up already now, my next favorite entry here would be a pop up into this high of that channel. I'd like to try to get that low of that range. I don't really need the low of the range as long as I can get above that, 90 3/4 area, kind of get up into some of these areas of resistance. What I'd love to do is sort of catch some of these buyers, thinking this market is a reversal. Like I mentioned, it's very difficult to find an open space right now to be a buyer. You get this, falling resistance trend line coming down. So hopefully I can get these buyers to try to get long on that pullback. And once they do that, we know exactly now where their stops are going to be. And we can literally just sell right into those stop losses with will be a failure, and then we can look for a pullback combination, right? So two of my favorite setups, failure patterns and pullback patterns, these are oftentimes combined in kind of a combination setup. So favorite trade number one here would be up into an area of resistance, kind of trap in some of those buyers trying to buy the pullback and literally just sell right into their stop losses, and then hopefully we can get that, again, kind of failure into pullback combination. And then again, right, targets are going to be low of the range. And I'll definitely try to leave a runner tomorrow if I can get to that thing, right, and see if we can catch that big pendulum swing back in the opposite direction. Now, of course, I also mentioned, too, that if the market does push higher here, and we'll talk about the buy side stuff here in a second, but, we may also see this market really jump. It may, hey, the markets are responding to stimulus, to earnings reports right now. There's lots of stuff going on. So it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if overnight in Asia, right, they open up, we see a strong run higher. And then at that point, though, here's the problem now. What am I going to do? Am I going to buy that pullback right now? Of course not, right? I'm not going to buy that pullback, right? Buying that pullback's like buying that pullback, right? It might work. It might work, but it's definitely not a very reliable long-term plan. So I wouldn't even think about buying that pullback. What I will do, though, is if the buyers can take out this high, my second kind of favorite trade for tomorrow would be I would use a failure pattern, but I would use more of what I call a nested failure, which basically means instead of simply looking for the buyers to try and selling into them, with momentum being so strong now, what I look for instead is buyers trying twice, right? Get them trying once, get them trying twice. Now, once I get those, let's get this a little bit forward here because there's a couple different setups you can look for. Once we get up, take that highs out, and honestly, it doesn't have to be the absolute high. I mean, this really, in all reality, could be like that, right? So as long as I can get up into that area, again, momentum's going to be a little bit stronger in that situation. So what I'll usually do in that situation is I'll look for the buyers trying once. Again, buyers trying twice. I'm not going to get too aggressive trying to get short off that because it will be a pretty strong pop higher here. Now, there's two ways I can enter this trade. One of them, and the easiest one, is to think about, okay, if I was a buyer, where would my stops be? To be right above that, right below that low, right? So buyers come in, try to buy it once. Buyers try again. Their stops, right, where their pain points are is if this market goes right below that low. And so that's an easy way to get short. My favorite way to short these kind of nested failures is, of course, draw a trend line off that low, draw a trend line off that high, right, and use that trend line. right? Now, oftentimes that produces a really strong run lower. So again, it's these are failure patterns, right? But they're I call them nested failures because of that momentum. So my favorite way is to sell off that trend line. I'd love to short off those lows, whichever one I get, right, which will work fine by me. And then remember, when we get this much of a pop off this low, we oftentimes will be able now to draw a trend line off that new low, draw a trend line off that high, and because that momentum is so strong, we can oftentimes look for a re-entry on what is almost, very similar to a failure into pullback combination, right? So failure pattern off that high, and then pullback pattern, right? Or, to be honest with you, there's a lot of different entry techniques you could use to get short off that high, like right here. Right? Like there's a good one right there, right? A trap setup. Traps are very common. You can apply that entry right there over to that spot as well, right? The two most common entries off the high of those channels are trap entries and failure entries. Now, I'm not going to have time to go over all the entry triggers that I'll use in this video, but if you want to get a much deeper dive and see lots of real examples of those entry triggers and entry setups and the ways we actually enter those trades, what I'll do is I'll put a little pop-up there in the upper right-hand corner for our free trading course. Grab that little pop-up there, get registered. We've got a great free class here at School of Trade, kind of a quick start class to bring you up to speed and kind of get you on the right side of the market, and that way you can make the most of our time together here on this video newsletter. So grab the little link up there in the upper right-hand corner. Don't delay. You're going to love that free course. Everybody loves it. There's a lot of lessons to learn, especially learning all these specific entry techniques. Now, of course, third one, right? Got my two favorites. My third one going lower, right? My third one is going lower. Now, as we go lower, this could really get good, right? It could really get good. Now, what might happen is we may end up getting stuck inside this range. So if that happens, we'll look to get above the range and use those buyer failure patterns, right? Buyer failures at resistance levels are always going to be my bread and butter to sell above the high of a range. Now, that really isn't my favorite setup for tomorrow, but that's definitely something I'll be watching for if we do end up going sideways, right? So if we do go sideways here, your goal is to find resistance levels above the range, and then combine those resistance levels with my favorites are failure patterns, right? And again, failures are pretty straightforward, right? We try to get up above the range, get those buyers to come in and show us their cards, and then once they do, we can literally sell short right into those stop losses with those, they're basically breakout failures that use the range as a magnet. What I would really love to get, though, would be if this thing makes a strong run lower, get a shallow pullback, a higher high in price, and a trap. That would be one of my favorites going lower here. And remember, right, just like this one back here, this kind of same idea, right? You get that strong move down, shallow pullback, lower low, right? That trap there. Same basic idea over here. Remember, though, what you want that strong signal candle, bullet moving average, and of course, extra bonus points for combining those lows, marking those highs, and combining that sucker right off the high of that of that channel. So that would be my kind of third favorite setup there for tomorrow. Now, can we buy this market? Right? By now, I've given you plenty of options. I'll be watching for the sell side here tomorrow. If the market makes a run and runs lower, I will definitely be open-minded to, once we kind of find a bottom down here, I'll be looking for, again, one of those nesteds, right? 1, 2, where bears try a few times, right? We talked about this selling off the high. I can also use those nested failures if we do end up kind of completing this big move down, running into that. Again, you get the measured move down there. So we'll watch and see once we get there. The hard part is going to be buying it as it goes higher. Because again, you've got all this resistance here overhead, trend lines coming down overhead. So how would I buy this thing? Well, we have to imagine that if they see a strong move higher it doesn't really help us very much because we're still right into those range highs up there. So it's not going to be enough to see a strong move higher. We're going to have to get a strong move up, a pullback to the moving average, and we're going to have to see these buyers hold that pullback. If I can get, and again, I called this right a 1, 2, 3 reversal going lower. If we can get something like that, right, a 1, 2, 3 reversal going higher, I know it's not the, I know it's not the sexiest thing in the world. It's not the coolest, way to do it. But right now we're bearish, and if I want to be a buyer, I've got to get these bears to show me they want something, right? Show me they want to go back to retest those all-time highs, right? Show me that something different is happening here in the market. So if I can get that 1, 2, 3, then I can go out. I'm not going to buy that first pullback. No way, right? That's the one I want to sell, right? I'm going to sell that sucker as it goes back down here. If the buyers can hold that pullback, though, I can gladly mark up that high. I can gladly, easily mark up that low. And then again, as we pull back to those lows, right, a lot of times this will be those trap setups, right? We talked about this earlier, right? There's a lot of different ways you can buy the low here. My favorite is a trap, right? So trap low or a failure, right, into pullback combination. Again, I'm just simply kind of marking up the screen here right now. But if they can give us that nice 1, 2 go, right, where they really jump off the moving average, that will give control back to the buyers. If we have enough momentum going higher, I've got that trap set up, I got my failure, my pullback combination. Again, I'll go over more details of the specific techniques to trigger those entries. I'll cover those details in the free course, right, that I mentioned, linked up in the upper right-hand corner. It's also linked up in the description of this video as well. So we're going to have to see a big turn here in momentum. Will we get that pop and that drop back down? Will it keep on grinding lower? And we're looking for traps. We know where the market wants to go. Now what we need right now is to find our way into it here. Tomorrow should be a pretty good day there on the S&P. Should we keep on going? NASDAQ up next. Now, just like the S&P, the NASDAQ had this, very nice, strong move going higher here, but they couldn't hold it, as you can see, right? The market pretty much ended with a bear market inside of a trading range. Now, the nuts and bolts on this are pretty straightforward. We're bearish. We're definitely not bullish right now, at least not for day traders, not for short-term traders, maybe for a long-term trader, right? But for short-term traders, though, I'm not going to waste my time in a daily chart or a weekly chart, right? Look at these faster time frames. This, by the way, is a 4,000 tick chart. You can always see all of the time frames I'm using in the upper left-hand corner. They are always tick charts. It's a bear market into a range. Anytime we have a bear market into a range, we just talked about this in the S&P, right? What's the plan? The plan is find levels of resistance, find levels of resistance, find levels of resistance, and sell those levels of resistance using the range as a magnet, right? Now, if the market rolls lower, we've got some targets waiting down there, possibly a measured move down there somewhere. So let's kind of wait and see kind of where the market pulls back, right? If all we get is a shallow pullback, that measured move will be a little bit lower. If we see a deeper pullback, that measured move, of course, will be a little bit higher, right? We do know though that again, this big leg down will likely be seen as a measuring leg. If it pulls back, that makes our job, pretty straightforward as far as where these bears want to go. A lot like the S&P, I think it will be a good idea here to get a glimpse at the bigger picture, because I think that will explain kind of where my sell zones are coming from, right? So we are a good distance off those all-time highs. The S&P can still smell the all-time highs. The NASDAQ, of course, not even close, right? Now, we spent a good amount of time last week after that big collapse on Thursday, right? Friday was very much a range market. You can see those lower highs, you can see those higher lows, and together that really gives me a nice area of resistance that I would really hope I can get my hooks into here tomorrow. So where would my favorite setups be right now? You can probably already anticipate. My favorite one would be a deep pullback into this, right, into this, kind of sell zone, right? And that sell zone is really based on that triangle middle. I've also got that weekend gap. And again, what is a weekend gap? A weekend gap is anytime there is a noticeable gap. There's always going to be a little bit difference. But anytime we see a noticeable gap between Friday's 5 o'clock close and Sunday's 6 p.m. Eastern time open, whenever you see a big difference there, usually that Friday's close is going to be a price magnet for the rest of the week. And now you'll notice, right, I do understand the gap has already been retested and quote-unquote filled already. But those levels, right, in this case, that 65 and a quarter, that will be it may not be a very strong magnet. The bears have control right now, but you'll be amazed how often those weekend gaps will find their way back into our picture here throughout the week here this week. So, all right, we know we're bearish. We got some levels of resistance here overhead to work with. We know where the market wants to go if they keep going lower. My two favorites in the pullbacks right now. Now here's my concern. If all we get, because in all reality, this area could be, it could be much lower here. There's a lot of what would be prior support levels that could be used as resistance there. The only problem I see right now is I'd like to see a relatively deep pullback, mostly because of this range overhead, right? That's kind of one of my big concerns is this market may be destined to pull back here and then make that move lower. So my first favorite setup would be a pullback. But then, again, knowing there's a range overhead, I don't want to sell too close to this range here. So I'm going to look for a trap entry on a shallow pullback. Now, traps, right? Traps are always my bread and butter whenever I'm worried about something, right? So in this case, I'm worried about the buyers getting it back into that triangle range, right? I'm worried about selling too low, right, inside that range here. So, if I wasn't so worried about that range above, I would say, and this might work still, right? I would say go up, get those buyers to try to buy, right, and get that failure right there, right? So a failure pattern, maybe we end up getting there. What I'd like to get, though, again, because of my concerns here, is get up in that range, get those buyers now, right, trying a couple times and get that trap. Because that will give me kind of the benefit of the doubt. It'll let the buyers basically try a few times, right, to run this thing back up into that range, and then I can get my trap out and hit that thing going lower here. These are really, really nice patterns. Remember too, you can almost always grab a trend line there, and use that as like an extra level of resistance, right? So a trap setup is my first favorite trade on a shallow pullback. What I'd like to do is get a deeper pullback, right? Get that deeper pullback, go up into this range area. Really what I'd like to do is get to the top of this channel. This channel, it's not that great, but it'll really work well for us in this case. So top of the channel, right? Get around resistance. Maybe it goes all the way to the magnet. Maybe it only goes to the weekend gap. Maybe all it does is hit the top of that channel here. What I'd like to do now is this is exactly where those buyers, they're gonna try to buy that pullback, and if they do, I can use their stop losses, gasoline, and I can sell into those stops. And these are those examples where you have enough space here now for one of those failure into pullback combinations. Target, of course, is down at that low and possibly even more, right? Because you can grab that pendulum swing. The amount of the move above the range could easily swing back down and become a pretty good move here for those bears. Now, keep in mind, right? Keep in mind if the market does go lower, next problem we're going to have here is we've got a bunch of lows down here. Okay, it's not difficult to see this low, right? It's a very big, it's pretty much a straight double bottom down here. So I would assume there'll be a lot of sellers taking profit down here, and I would assume buyers are going to look at this thing and say, okay, there's one big range, let's buy low, right? So you got to think there's probably going to be a bounce off of that low. Maybe not. We'll have to kind of wait and see if we get there. But I'll have to assume there'll probably be a bounce off that low here. So I don't want to be too aggressive as the market rolls lower here. And again, I've got that kind of measured move I'm watching for. We don't exactly know where that is, but it will be on my radar as we go lower. As we go lower, if we go lower here, what's my concern? I always talk about, right, there are two things to keep an eye on: location and momentum, right? There are kind of two things you want to always kind of keep your eyes on: location and momentum. Momentum is great, right? Very bearish as we go down. It's location. Location is the one that doesn't really make a lot of sense down here because, again, you got that big bottom down there. So I talked about earlier, my favorite entry setup is when I'm concerned about something. It's a trap, right? So as we're going lower here, keep your eyes open for those traps, right? Strong move down, shallow pullback. And again, that trap high will be a great short, again, as we're going down to take out that 13,700, in a quarter or so, right? That low down there. And again, don't forget, right? Extra bonus points for finding those entries. Not required, but definitely not going to hurt you, right? With that trap off the high of that channel. So got a pretty good setup there. That's one of my favorites for tomorrow. So my three favorites here. The first one is that, right? That trap. Okay. Second one is that buyer failure into pullback combination. Third one, of course, right, is that two-try trap to avoid selling too low as we go lower. And again, I'm just simply kind of drawing my ideas on the chart right now. I'll send you a lot more examples of kind of real examples of those setups off the charts in our trade room, right? I'll grab that link in the upper right-hand corner if you want to get a deeper dive into all of these setups, right? So definitely grab that free course linked up in the upper right-hand corner. All right, how do I buy this market right now? Okay, that's the big question right now. How do we buy this thing? Well, first of all, we know there's that magnet overhead. The problem is we have all of this momentum right now. So for me to want to be a buyer, to be a buyer on this, I really don't want to try to pick a bottom on this right now. We're really not at a turning point. It'd be different if we were sitting right here. You know what I mean? If I was sitting right here right now, I would say, you know what? Let's look for one of those nesteds, right? Those one try, those two tries. That would be a decent trade because you're at the low of the range. But we're not anywhere, right? I mean, we are. I guess we're in our own range right now, but we're not really at a turning point right now. So trying to look for a reversal pattern right now, I mean, I can teach you all the reversal patterns in the world, but if you don't apply them in the right spots, they're not going to work very well. Now, could I get down to these lows? Right, and grab a nested or a crown reversal pattern there? Absolutely, right? That would be somewhere where I could get down with being a buyer, right? Finish off that move. We get that little two-try trap. We get our short going on to the downside. They take out those lows. The bears come in, right? They try once. They try twice. Now we've got that, that channel. We've got that trend line, right? We can buy off the trend line. We can buy, you get it, right? That's the same entry pattern we talked about a few times already in this video. But again, got to happen at a major turning point. So that is an option, but we got to be careful, not to pick this bottom here right now. The only other option would be is that we need to turn this boat around, right? We got to turn this thing around. In other words, we have to get get up, get popping off these lows. But again, with all of this momentum right now, there'll be a lot of bears who want to pummel this thing, taking it lower in the NASDAQ. So the bulls will have to hold that pullback and show me they mean it. And, there's no reason why it can't happen. But I'm not going to predict it. I'm not going to try to hope for the best, right? Hope isn't a strategy we use very well in our trade room, right? I want to trade what I see, not what I hope or think, right? So 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're on to something. Now I've got some momentum. Now I can mark up that high. I can mark up that low, and again, maybe it's a trap low, you know what I mean, right? Maybe it's a trap off that low. Again, I'm just simply trying to find a way in. Maybe it's a trap off that low. Maybe it's a failure into a pullback combination. Again, you'll learn more about these entry triggers in the free trading class, right? But those are some really easy pickings if we can get this thing to really turn. And remember, guys, it's not so much the strength of the pullback. It's the strength of the jump off the moving average. That's what gives the buyers the edge, not the first pullback, right? The leg coming off the moving average. Then we can mark up our high, find our low, and we can go out and go qualify our entries off the low of that channel. The target for these buyers is pretty easy, right? It's going to be the high here from today, that 47, of course, that big top, right, 13,980. Okay, so we got a pretty good idea of where these buyers want to go. The sellers definitely have the edge, though, right now. You can definitely tell that on our radar. All right, put some gold right now. Now, gold is a very interesting market as we go into tomorrow. You can see what kind of happened, right? Last Friday, the market was flat as a board. This morning, I'm not sure what the heck got into their system this morning. It doesn't matter, really. This morning, though, the market takes off like a rocket ship. Okay, so very, very strong move. It's no surprise that after taking out these big highs at 98.4, right, there's this big top up here. You can see that big top, right? One top, two top, big top up there. It's no surprise that with that much strength for the buyers, they take out those highs, and right now the market's just kind of hanging out, right? Going sideways here. Now, right above that area, I've got that 1803, and we've talked about these pendulum swings, right? There was a range, as you can see, that big range, huge range, right? Again, not wide, right? Very narrow, but very long-term range there. The amount below that range, you know me, I love these pendulum swings, that creates resistance up overhead as well. On top of that, we also have an extension level up there, 1808.1. So there's a lot of areas of resistance up there. We're going to have to see a lot of strength here for these buyers to convince us to keep buying up here. And remember, we just made that huge run up today. So we're going to have something has to happen here overnight. There has to be a political speech or a disaster of some sort. There has to be something that happens right now that would cause most buyers to say, oh, I got to get in right now. We're going higher. Again, look at this. We've got this big move today. Most buyers that I would imagine, they're going to say, I'm not going to buy way up here, right? I'll buy down here. I'll buy a pullback, but I'm not going to buy way up here. This is crazy, right? It's way too high up. So the idea of this market making another strong leg higher tomorrow, well, it would require something overnight here to shake this thing up, right? It would require some news, some announcement, some catalyst to change the opinion of this market. So in situations like this, where we have these big moves in one session, right? We finish off in a range, and we're right at these major highs. We've got a really difficult, well, for the buyers at least, the buyers have a very difficult job ahead of them tomorrow, right? I really don't want to buy as we go higher here, right? Because you're running into resistance. And here's the thing. If we try to buy the pullback right now, I talked about this in the intro, right? If we try to buy the pullback, you can definitely see there's a good spot to do it too, right? You've got this channel coming off the low, channel off the high, right? Get this hidden channel. It's a great looking, if you're a client of mine, right? It's a great looking example of those 1, 2, 3 moves, right? So it's a great example here of a great channel. But here's the problem though. The fact that we've got this rotation off the high, right? This rotation off the high. What does that mean? Well, basically, whenever we have a range like this, okay, I want to buy at support levels, right? Support levels below the range. Well, here's the problem though, is that there's a very big difference between a market that goes up into a range and then pulls back. That's still very bullish. But you'll notice what's happening right now though. We actually went up through the range and then pulled back into it. What that means to me is if this market now spits out the other end, this is going to look very bearish, right? It will. And there are going to be channels coming over here, you know what I mean? Just the S&P right now. Right? Go to the S&P right now and you'll see what I mean, right? The S&P is kind of the same idea, which means there are going to likely be, if they're smart, a lot of sellers looking for that short. Okay? The bulls definitely have control right now. There's no doubt about that. But the risk-reward ratio is significantly better here for the buyers. For the sellers, excuse me. I don't mean to confuse things, right? The risk-reward ratio is horrible right now for the buyers. There's not a lot of meat left in the bone up here. So these are scenarios where, no, we don't want to try to call a top on this, but we do want to anticipate where the buyers might be running out of options, kind of boxed in, if you will, for tomorrow. So my favorite setup as we go. My favorite entry right now would be a short trade, right? I don't usually go against a trend like this, but in this scenario though, it'll be a short. My favorite one would be just like when we saw on the S&P, right? Where they make that move lower, they get that shallow pullback, that lower low, and that trap. And the trap, of course, right, comes up around the high of that channel. That would be definitely if I got what I want for tomorrow. If the trading gods are listening up there right now, give me that two-try trap up above the high of that channel. That would be my favorite way to sell this market. Another of my favorites in the same idea here would be if we get the pullback now and we start seeing now the bears try once, the bears try twice, maybe a trap, right? Maybe a channel, a nested entry. Okay, nesteds are great, or a nested failure. Right? So this is basically a failure setup, as I've talked about many times already. Why do I use a nested failure here? Why not just use the bears stop loss and buy? It's because of this rotation, right? Like I said earlier, that rotation off the high is a big clue. What'll happen a lot of times is you'll try to go for that failure pattern, and all you're doing is just walking right into, right? You're walking right into, you know what I mean? It'll go lower. You'll see the bears come in, try to get short. You'll go, oh, easy, failure, right? Stops are right there. Perfect. Just give me the money now, right? I'll just buy it right. I can already smell the leather on the new car I'll buy with the profit I make. But what ends up happening, though, is with all that momentum coming over, you know, right? You're probably walking into a trap. You're probably going to stop out the short-term the bears, but the long-term bears, though, they're waiting right there to pick your pocket. So that's the one I'd like. My second favorite, though, again, I'm not afraid to be a buyer on this. I just want to get down to support, get those bears trying a few times, right? Again, because I'm anticipating, again, major turning point, overshoot the range, you know what I mean? Big move up. If I can get those bears trying a few times now, I would really love to get that trap low. Okay, that trap low will be great. Can I draw that trend line, find that channel? Either one of those would work. And these are really good setups. These are really good setups. They may not be kind of what I would love to get tomorrow, but they will definitely be good trades, right? So that's a second favorite there for you. And again, it's a failure pattern. It's just a variation of that failure we call nested variations. You'll learn more about that stuff in that free course I keep mentioning in the upper right-hand corner. Now, what if we go higher here? Right? What if we go higher here? My third favorite trade for tomorrow will be a short off the high, right? So we go up, we retest these highs now. Buyers try once, buyers try twice, back down again. Again, another very good risk-reward trade because you can risk very small up here for a very large potential reward. Am I going to try to pick a top on this? Of course not, right? That's crazy. Okay, we don't want to try to sell in a bull market, but when I go back to retest these highs, if I can see these buyers struggling up here, find my chance, right? That's a great trade. That's a trade I will take every single time. Again, mark up the high, right? Mark up that low. That gives you a nice, easy kind of target on the opposite side. And again, because of that big range down there, it could get really good there for the bears. Now, speaking of which, right, another option would be we see a strong run down. We don't see a lower low and a trap high. The market just collapses, right? What do we call those? We call those, 1, 2, 3 reversal patterns. Okay, don't chase it. Stay patient. Mark that low, mark that high. And remember, right, it's not just sell the high. It's a trap entry. It's a failure entry. It's a pullback combo into a strength move, right? Any of my favorite entry setups, which you'll learn in the free course, right? Those will apply off of that high, right? Off the high of that channel, and we know where the bears, right, where they want to go here. How about the buyers? Again, the hard part is the buyers don't have a lot of options up here. In order for me to want to be a buyer up here, I'm going to have to get a 1, 2, 3 breakout. Really show me, bulls, that you want more. I mean, and there's more up there. I've got, 1835, some big levels there overhead. 18, where was it? 18, oh, maybe that was a Nasdaq I was thinking about. But 1835, 1808, though, is a big area. So it's not going to be that easy here being a buyer up here. It might be easier money going up, taking out these highs and going one try, two try, and back into that range again. But again, if we can make a run higher, if those buyers can hold that pullback, they can shut me right up real fast by holding that pullback. And once we do, swallow your pride. You should have no ego in being wrong at all. You're not wrong. You're just not right about what happened, right? So make your adjustment, find that new channel, right, and then get in off the low of that channel. One thing I know is if we get a 1, 2, 3 breakout out of this range like this, that first pullback is highly reliable, highly reliable. It's just a matter of not shooting yourself in the foot trying to grab the first pullback, right? I know that the breakouts always look so easy in hindsight. But as you probably have learned by now, if you're watching this video right now, you probably have learned it's not as easy as just trading every breakout. Right? I wish it was that easy, but then again, I don't, because there wouldn't be any money left for the real pros in the market. Right? You'll get there. You'll get there. Now, tomorrow morning, got a big day ahead of us tomorrow. I would love to see you there, right there with us. Now you know my favorite setups. I'm sure there are going to be a couple variations tomorrow, right? The markets are always a bit gray, right? They're never black and white. So I'm sure I missed something tonight, but not to worry. Tomorrow morning, we'll be right on the ball tomorrow. I'd love to have you there right there with us. I'll put all of the membership information you guys need. I'll put all that in the description of this YouTube video. If you're on the blog right now, I'll put a big button for you right below me tonight on the trading blog. Grab that button, get registered. Don't be late tomorrow morning. And don't forget, you can always call me in the office. I'm always here to help. If you guys have any questions about getting registered or any questions about getting your charts, your brokers, your data, whatever it might be, don't be afraid to call the office, right? I got live chat on the left, live chat on the right, and you can always drop those questions in the comments section below. All right, guys, great job today. Great work today in the trade room. Hopefully tomorrow will be a great day tomorrow morning at the opening bell, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Hope I'll see you there. Hope you learned a bunch here this evening. Hope you shared this video with a friend, and hope by now you subscribed to our YouTube channel, because as you can see, I'm not messing around here on this video every evening. We'll wrap things up here for now. Have a great evening out there. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning at the opening bell in the trade room. If not, make sure you come back and see us again tomorrow night. We'll do it all again in the next edition of this nightly news. So that's it for me, guys. My name is Joseph. Be well out there. Be nice to each other, will you? And be here next time. Adios, amigos. Bye-bye for now.